Hello everybody. I want to do a video for you today on your brain and what happens to it when you are writing electronic music. You have a left and a right hand side of your brain. At least I hope you do. Those mono-brainers out there can just stop watching the video now. And hopefully you've heard that the left hand side of your brain and the right hand side of your brain do different things. The realm of the left hand side of the brain is the more analytical, logical, reasoning side of things, the type that would be used if you were an accountant, for example, and you dealt with a lot of numbers and math. The right-hand side of your brain is thought to be the more creative side, the kind that would be engaged when you're expressing, when you're being creative, and especially when you are being musical. However, for electronic musicians, it's not as cut and dried as that. And this question was brought up recently because I oftentimes have students come to me and they'll say something like, I'm just really not happy with my progress. I don't know what's going on. Like, why am I so far behind? They're not happy with their music. And I'll say, well, how long have you been producing for? They'll be like, oh, a whole 8 months. I have to stop myself from laughing there because if you saw me trying to play saxophone after playing for 8 months, it would be ridiculous. The pressure that we put ourselves under to be able to produce professional quality tunes after such a short amount of time is absolutely ridiculous. And you'll realize how much more ridiculous it actually is when you understand what's happening with your brain. Okay? Now, when you're working on an electronic music production program like Ableton Live, you are not just using one side of your brain. It's not, I'm a musician, so I'm using the right-hand side of my brain. Not the case. Because if you look at Ableton Live or any other music production program, it is highly mathematical, highly logical, and highly analytical. If you look in Session View in Ableton Live, it looks more like an Excel spreadsheet than a musical instrument, right? So when you are doing electronic music, the right-hand side of your brain is engaged in working. Yes, you're being creative, you're being musical, you're playing melodies and things like that. However, the left-hand side of your brain is also being engaged because the nature of the computer program is numbers and logical equations and things like that. Like, for example, when you're putting in and designing a synth patch and you're typing in frequencies or filter cutoff points or whatever, like that is a very non-right brain activity. You are not being a traditional musician. There, you're being more like a computer programmer. So given this knowledge, what can we surmise? The first is, I'd like you to acknowledge the demands that you're placing on your brain when you're writing electronic music. You're engaging the right and the left-hand side, you're asking them to communicate, and what you're requesting is very demanding. So have patience and be gentle with yourself. If you put all this pressure on yourself to basically pick up a computer and immediately start making bangers, then you are going to not enjoy the creative process, and you're going to end up holding yourself back rather than getting yourself further ahead. The role of pressure never ever serves us. So understand and acknowledge that what you're asking your brain to do is very complex and to give yourself time to develop. Now, let's talk about how your brain develops. Your brain is an immensely complex and unbelievably powerful organ, and it has the capability to rewire itself. It's called neuroplasticity. It's how we learn new skills. It's how we learn new habits and get rid of old ones. Our brain is completely capable at any age, not just when you're a child, to rewire itself. A lot of people think that you have to have started into music when you're like 5 years old or something to be a musician. And if you didn't get piano lessons, from your parents when you were a child, that you're never going to make it. Complete and total bullshit. Your brain can rewire itself at any point in time. So let's talk about how you might do that. First of all, even if you're an electronic musician, you have a massive motivation to take up an acoustic instrument, because an acoustic instrument, piano, guitar, saxophone, or even singing, requires that the left and the right-hand sides of your brain communicate better. The piece of your brain that connects the left and the right-hand sides is this chunk called the corpus callosum, and it has been scientifically proven in musicians to be much larger and more developed because it requires that communication between the two sides. So how can you go about increasing that to help your left and your right brain to communicate better? Well, it's simpler than you might think. It's practice. Neuroplasticity and the way that your brain rewires itself requires constant stimulus over time. That's why it takes, they say, 30 days or so to build a new habit. That consistency over time helps your brain to rewire. So, the studies in the past that showed musicians having a larger corpus callosum than non-musicians, one of the main things they noticed was this consistent stimuli of practice. And in this case, the type of practice they're talking about is greater than 1 hour per day. So this is different, potentially, than going and writing a tune. Practice might consist of a whole variety of different things. If you're playing notes in with a MIDI keyboard, it's maybe just jamming, playing some melodies. Don't even go into the studio with an intention of writing a tune. Just go in to experiment. And getting that consistently in your life and in your production practice will really help to rewire your brain and help you to become a better electronic musician. So what they recommend is an hour or more a day. And if you're able to do that without the pressure of, oh, I have to write a tune right now, just going in and having fun, exploring, playing some chords, playing some melodies, messing around with plugins, maybe creating some sounds that you may or may not use, all will help to assist you in the process of evolving yourself as a musician. I'm going to do more videos on this because this is a topic that really interests me, and it's a wide and massive topic. But in the time that I have today, that's what I wanted to communicate. So I hope you guys can digest and absorb that. It's something I found super fascinating, and it's changed the way that I am approaching my practice and my studio sessions. And myself personally, I'm a saxophone player, so I've kind of reignited this passion that I have for playing the saxophone, because I know the more I practice that, the better I'm going to get at electronic musician. It's that weird synergy there between acoustic and electronic music. They both work to wire both sides of the brain together. So keep an eye out for future videos on this topic. I'm going to be posting more, but for now, that's what I got for you guys. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope this message finds you well and inspired. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.